What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. Under very unfortunate circumstances, we are here live on the YouTube. We also have the Instagram going. If you want to watch our guest as well as other commentary, go press the YouTube link that is in the description here or in my bio. We're going to be ending the Instagram live here in just a few minutes, so we want to get as many people on YouTube as we can. Of course, it's easier to watch it on there as well. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Of course, today, under very unfortunate circumstances, the 76ers, the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, losing to the 5-seeded Atlanta Hawks. As always, you're alongside Gavin, Tony, again, to those here on the Instagram. Go join us on YouTube so you can hear and talk to our guests as well as my co-host, Gavin. It's been a week since we've been here. I got to say, first of all, it's great to be back. I missed it much, but not the best circumstances to be under today. But, Gavin, let's get started with it. First, how have you been doing minus the disappointing loss tonight?
Zach, I've been doing good. Besides today, actually, I mean the Phillies lose 13-2. Nothing new. And the Sixers. But Zach, I went to Topgolf. We gotta get into that. My furthest drive is 90 yards, ladies and gentlemen. It might not be a big improvement for you guys, but for me, it's a major step up. So I can definitely take Zach on. But Zach, it's great to be back. I wish we were talking in a more cheerful mood in the morning and not 11-19 at night. But this is what happens when your team and Ben Simmons is garbage. But Zach, how was senior week? How was the party?
It was fun for the most part. Of course, a lot of Sixers games there, a lot of disappointments. Of course, the U.S. Open just ended today. That's all for say for tomorrow. You know, this show was planned about 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. That's all for tomorrow. We'll break all that down. Right now, we're getting into it. We're going to be joined by Dom Amoroso here on the YouTube. Again, for those of us listening on the Instagram, I've said it about a million times, make sure you join us here on the YouTube so you can see all of our awesome guests, as well as Gab and myself. Dom, I do remember very strongly that you said you liked Doc Rivers as a hire, but he was not known as the best in series coach. You warned us, and a lot of Clippers fans warned us as well. I don't know. I think that this has been a fascinating season with COVID and whatnot as fans slowly came back. But tonight, fully focusing on the 76ers, I'll call it this. It's an implosion. Game 1. Of course, was as disappointing as it was. They got a lot of momentum late in the game. It was a moral victory, to say the least. And then on top of all that, they win Game 2. They crush in Game 2 and 3. Up big in Game 4, up 18 points. They blow that. And then you go ahead and up 26, I want to say, in Game 5. They blow that. And then Game 6 was way too uncomfortable the whole time. They get out with a win. Tonight was way too uncomfortable. Come out with a loss. I don't even know how to unpack it, Dom. Coaching perspective, I'll start with you. I want to hear from you first. First of all, how are you doing? It's great to have you back on the show, of course.
Man, fellas, if I didn't say it already on air, congrats on your graduations. Proud of both of you guys. I've known both of you guys for some time now. Zach, I've known you since I think you were in 7th grade. I used to hang out with your brother, Gavin. I've really gotten to know you well over the past year. So congrats to both of you guys on your future endeavor and best of luck on your future endeavors. The first thing I'm going to say is no championship caliber team or anything close to a championship caliber team with championship caliber players loses 3 home games in a series like this. You know, that's the one underrated stat. You know, you guys know I'm an analytics guy. You know, I can go into all the crazy ass stats and all that. But no championship caliber team loses 3 home games, especially when, you know, they're claiming, I've disagreed on this for some time, we have great home court advantage. We have great home court advantage. Well, in this series, you really didn't. You really didn't. They certainly in the second half of this one, just focusing on this game itself, in the second half, their half court defense, wasn't good. They certainly, I think, lacked aggression at times. I think, we saw that in several key moments down the stretch. This team has a lot of flaws, I think, that were exposed throughout the series. And you have to give credit to Atlanta. They've been the hottest team, since Nate McMillan took over. He coached a heck of a series. Kevin Huerter, who looks like, he could play. He's from Father Judge or Archbishop Ryan up there in the Northeast. And Gavin, I texted you this in the one group chat we're in, is, the performance he had tonight, the 24-point performance he had tonight, echoed so much of Cody Ross in the 2010 NLCS, Rondé Barber, in the 2002-2003 NFC Championship game. This one's tough to get over, and it's been 8 years since the whole process got going, and I'm a Sam Hinkie fan, but I think this all culminates to the fact that this experiment didn't work. I'm not saying the act of tanking itself doesn't work, but in this particular case where they were really vying for the number one pick all those years, their number one pick sold out on them. Their number one picks sold out on them, didn't give them a backbone. You're you're paying Tobias Harris all this money. He's underperformed. You have a superstar big man who I think is the most talented center in the game that can't stay healthy. He's played his ass off all year, but the guy can't stay healthy. This one really hurts. And Gav, I tend to watch these series from a neutral perspective and seeing both sides. But from the perspective of a Philadelphian, I think more than ever we're going to look at this year, back on this year, and say this was the year to get it done. This was the year to get it done. Brooklyn fell; they were banged up. The Lakers were banged up, injured. Now I think going into the next series, I don't want to talk too much about what could have been in that Bucks series, but I think the Bucks' depth would have probably exposed the Sixers a little bit, which is another flaw I think they have to address this offseason, is the bench. So there's a laundry list of questions that are in front of this team right now.
You talk about giving Atlanta Hawks credit. This is why I don't give Atlanta Hawks credit, and here's why. The style of basketball they play is the reason why this generation of basketball is left as a joke. I mean, constant falling, complaining, whining. I mean, Trae Young is a diva. All right, they just ended the Kardashians. They can make another spinoff of that, off Trae Young himself. He can play all the emotions. But John Collins got the best of his matchup at some point. He did. As much as I hate to say it, he did.
And he won a psychological battle too.
They won a psychological battle too. But when it came to the game itself, the principles of the game, just taking the contact, Atlanta deserves no credit, and Milwaukee is going to expose that quickly, and they're going to get swept in for it. I mean, I don't really like how Jrue Holiday played in the last series for Milwaukee, and Chris Middleton. I have my opinions on him about his ups and downs, but this Atlanta Hawks team is soft. Zach, we argue all the time about LeBron James and the GOAT conversation right here and right now. This Atlanta Hawks team is the reason why no one from this generation will ever be considered the greatest of all time. This series right here just proved it. And if you want to take another series in consideration, talk about the Lakers and Suns in game one, or in that series, round one. Talk about this one. And for crying out loud, maybe you could talk about Portland versus Denver. It's how the game is played. And the way how Trae Young plays the game, I can't respect that. I really don't. He's not good. I mean, am I regretting some of my words right now? Maybe. I could be upset Sixers fan talking. But going to the Sixers standpoint, how do you give up 2 20-point leads in back-to-back games, one in your home?
10-point lead with like 5 minutes to go in the fourth twice.
5 minutes, exactly. You're telling me now someone can't make a simple 2? Now someone can make – I'm not asking for threes. I'm just asking for a bucket. Like, do something. You ever heard the term "stop the bleeding"? At some point, you have to. You're going to die if you don't stop the bleeding. Your internal bleeding, that's what kills a lot of people. But if you go in this game, excuse me, this game was in hand. What happened in the game? The Sixers just couldn't hit a shot, and the lack of Ben Simmons being able to actually score. You gave up a wide open dunk. It doesn't get any easier than that. And for crying out loud, who's guarding Ben Simmons? Who's stopping Ben Simmons? Ben Simmons is stopping Ben Simmons. No, I never seen a guy that just doesn't want to attack. I don't understand it. I mean, Zach and Dominic, I was 6'10", 220, whatever he weighs, and you were telling me I could attack and get away with an undersized player on me. I'm going for it, especially how soft this league is. And I always talk about making free throws and making 15-footers. He can't do either one. He really can't. So you want to talk about Ben Simmons, you want to talk about Doc Rivers, you could put them all. But today, right now, it goes Ben Simmons looks really bad, Doc Rivers looks second, and then you have to look at Tobias Harris. There's nothing I have to say bad about Joel Embiid. I really don't.
Back-to-back seasons, he should have in the playoffs. Last year, I know it was overlooked because they got swept. But I have a few things that I want to point out. I'm trying to see if everything still holds true. It really doesn't. But Tobias Harris -6 tonight, Embiid -2, Ben Simmons +1, Curry -2, Korkmaz +5. The entire bench, less Shake Milton, were in the minuses. Almost every night, I think every starter, I think the average will probably come up with this. I'll pull it up for tomorrow. But every starter minus Tobias Harris was in the positives the entire series. That's how it's been. The starters on the floor, as bad as Ben and Tobias have been, they've been so much more dominant than the opposing team. They've went on runs like that. Tonight was different. Tonight in Game 6, I'd say were different. But every other game, they were on a huge run, and they go to these 4 bench players and Tobias. And then here's my second point. Here's how many points the Sixers allowed in every single game of this series. 128, 102, 111, 103, 109, 99, 103. Minus that first game, you take that every night. It's about the offensive side of the glass. It's not about Ben's ability to not shoot. It's his inability to be productive on offense. You can't play basketball 4-on-5, and that's what they're doing. He's facilitating from the top of the key. When you don't have a jump shot, it's much harder to do that because they don't give you the respect. When he's in the paint, he finds really good looks. That's great and all, but he's staying at the top of the key. When you can't shoot, it's a problem. Doc Rivers' coaching style is not going to be able to be efficient with this kind of play. They're better off making a move in the offseason, getting themselves another guard, seeing what you can do. At this point, I don't really care about the defense. I really don't. Ben Simmons is so broken offensively. We're done. This was the season to win it. The Sixers, what you want, will never win an NBA title. They won't, because look at how talented this league is. The Clippers will most likely lose this Western Conference final, but they looked a hell of a lot better this year than last year, even though they had that Game 7 scare against them. Kawhi Leonard, next year, we don't know what he's going to look like if it is a torn ACL again. That's not confirmed. The Lakers are going to be healthy next year, as healthy as they can be. Brooklyn's going to be healthy and motivated. The Bucks are only getting better, it looks like, at this point, year in and year out. This was the year to do it. Atlanta's going to get better. The Knicks are going to maybe attract some talent. This is it. This was Apex Philly. I don't know what you go from here. There were rumors of Embiid going to the Heat after last season. Obviously, the dust settled there when he had an MVP campaign, and it looked like everything was going well. I had one thing, too, and a good friend of mine has pointed this out a few times. Doc Rivers was hired before Daryl Morey got here. That may have a big thing in play this offseason. I don't know if you want to fire a coach after 1 year, Dom. I'm sure you're
on this. Not to cut you off, I will say this. Just to a little note on that. Before Daryl Morey left Houston, he did want Doc Rivers in Houston. That was one of the guys on his list. So I don't think that has a huge impact. I think there's plenty of cohesion between the two of them.
Gotcha. Yeah, I want that pointed out because, of course, Mike D'Antoni is a name that's popular as a potential coach. I don't know. I think that Doc Rivers 1 year is not enough. But, I mean, you look at Joel Embiid's growth this year. You look at Furkan Korkmaz's development. You look at Shake Milton, who, given had a pretty poor end of the year but had a pretty strong start, was in the sixth man of the year conversation very, very early in the year. Tyrese Maxey, you expect to develop. I mean, this was a strong coaching staff this year. It really was. I'm confused why we're going 4 or 5 deep in the second round in Game 7 at the very least. Brooklyn went 2 deep last night. Again, different situations, I guess. But even in the Raptors series, the Sixers only played James Ennis and Mike Scott in that Raptors series and maybe Greg Monroe for a few minutes. It's different this time because the Sixers in the past have lost playoff series because both Embiid and Simmons were inefficient. This time it's Simmons and Harris, and then a whole bunch of other things just misfire on all cylinders. And so bottom line is Sixers could have closed the deal by winning either Game 4 or 5 and then Game 6. They failed to do that, so everything blew up in their face tonight. It's not too big of a surprise at the end of the night. Ben Simmons is most likely going to have to be on the move this offseason, but it's got to be worth it.
I mean, Dom, I sent you this text earlier today. I said, as soon as Devin Booker had a 40-point trip dub, and what was the first thing I said to you, Dom? I said, Sixers, Suns, I have to see it. Did both teams even up well? You got a team that's young and that wants to be here and is showing the worth, and Devin Booker and Chris Paul is playing out their mind. And then you have a team that's looked dominant at some points all year long, and they're the 1 seed, and it just. And no. I can never get my wish. I really can't. I got my first one. I got Zach's best friend LeBron James out in the first round. I mean, I'm 1 for 2. Okay. I guess it's okay. But all jokes aside, it was just a year to do it. It really was. It really was. And when you think about how the Sixers lost and the potential it was, I mean, look at the West. If the Suns don't make it out, it's the Clippers with the Kawhi-less Clippers, most likely. And Milwaukee, we all know at some point Milwaukee, what Giannis does isn't going to work. And all honesty, guys, they shouldn't really be here. If Kevin Durant did have some long feet, that's at your 3-point shot. And they're in the Eastern Conference waiting on us. But no, that's not how it falls. You're going to play Milwaukee. And Zach, I think in 7 games, we could have beat Milwaukee in 7 games. But no, we're gonna go home, and now we get to watch soft Trae Young be Mr. Shiver and watch them lose in 4 games. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just really mad right now because you're right, Dom. When you're gonna look back on this year and you're like 72 game season, who was the champion? Well, who was the 1 seed? The finals is going to be between the Clippers, Suns, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Milwaukee Bucks. No 1 seed in sight. No LeBron James in sight. No Steph Curry. No none of these guys. And you didn't get the cake. You didn't do anything.
All the stars aligned this year. The Nets decided to rest some of their guys. The Sixers took advantage of that and got the 1 seed locked up. Had the easiest route to the Eastern Conference Finals to face a banged up Nets team who ended up losing. And no offense to what they're doing in Phoenix, I love it a lot. But they're no prime Lakers. They're no Clippers with Kawhi.
I don't know.
I mean, I love Phoenix. I think they're doing a great job. They might win the title. Phoenix might win the title, and they every right. They're honestly my favorite right now to win the title. But with that being said, it's not as hard as it could have been. It's hard to win an NBA title. You have to beat good teams, no question about it. But if there was any year for the Sixers to be able to do it without having a LeBron James, without having a Chris Paul and Devin Booker, without having a Kawhi Leonard kind of player, this was the year to do it.
I go ahead, Don.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think this is it's certainly, the road. I'm not gonna say it was clear for them, but all the dominoes fell in place for them. You really can't say much more than that, and they didn't deliver. We're just talking solely from the Sixers' perspective. These guys didn't deliver. Do I place a lot of blame on Doc Rivers? Yeah, I'm not going to say, he's number 1 to blame, but, he failed, exactly like you said earlier. He failed to adjust. He didn't shorten his rotations. He continued to play an all-bench lineup for the most part in certain spurts of this series. And I think there are some, kinks that need to be still worked out in his coaching, and you look at the lack early on of Tyrese Maxey on the floor. I think, in some of those early games, he would have helped a lot more. Gab, to your point, Joel Embiid, played his behind off.
I mean, I know what you wanted to sort of cut you off, but I mean, that's one person I don't want to hear any blame of today is the big man. You're playing on torn meniscus. I mean, you're 7'1", 2 for crying out loud. You're tired. I mean, what else can you ask for? Do I wish he stopped doing those post-ups? I mean, those little face-up jump shots and stuff? Of course. But
you can't – I don't know what more you can ask for him. It's Game 7.
Yeah, me either.
He had 40 point in a loss. Tobias Harris had a horrible game that game. Ben Simmons had a horrible game. I don't know what you do at that point. You can't blame Joel. Joel Embiid is the least of my concerns right now. I mean, his knee now and the future for him is obviously, but – unless you get Damian Lillard in this offseason, I don't see how this team contends again in the future with every other team in the league getting healthy.
Absolutely. And, to that point, I was talking with somebody earlier about this today. Even if, they got past this round, you still look at the Ben Simmons situation the same? I would say yes. This is a guy, and, I know on this show a couple of times we've gone back and forth about it. This is a guy that has failed to develop. And it has showed, game by game in these playoffs. And when you have other young guys out there and other stars that, are willing to when you have young guys that are willing to develop, and you have stars out there that are going to want to be on the move, and you have a great president in Daryl Morey who's always in win now mode, you're gonna see a move made. And I wish Ben the best. He's not a bad guy or anything.
One of the best defenders in the NBA.
In terms of in terms of basketball, this is a guy that has failed to develop and that hasn't been held accountable. I don't care if we're talking about Brett Brown or Doc Rivers. He has not been held accountable. And by the time guys want to start holding him accountable, it's too late. And I think I think once again, that the Sixers have suffered from it.
What makes this loss even worse tonight? And Dom, and this goes to something that goes back to the old chat that we were in. The fact that our friend, if you want to call him that, is sitting here probably laughing and enjoying. Miles is sitting here laughing and enjoying about how Ben Simmons' failure. I mean, Zach, let me tell you, Ben Simmons gets criticized for a lot of things. About offensively not being developed, Dom, you're right, not being held accountable, this, that, and the third. But the one thing I won't accept for Ben Simmons is defensively he was there. But at some point, that defense has to turn to offense. And when you're 6'10", running down the floor, running in space, you have to be able to score. This guy just takes off full speed, and instead of attacking the basket, because the game is soft as feathers, you could get a foul call off that. You can go to the free throw line. Well, oh wait, why would you go? Because you can't make them. I mean,
goes right by the rim and passes the ball up.
That's the difference. During the regular season, he did do that. I don't think I saw a single fast break point.
Well, and the thing in the regular season too is the lights aren't on like that. People aren't, especially when you're the number one. You're on path to be the number one seed in the East throughout the regular season. People are going to overlook that type of stuff because why? You can do that you can do that every other night. In the playoffs where where the microscope is zoomed in 100%, you can't do that. To a basketball person like me, you'd notice it. But now I think the general fan base, the media, I think it's seen now. I think it's how do I want to say it? It's zoomed in a little now more than ever, and it was, like I said, a big part of what cost them this series.
And real quick, Zach, before I let you hop in here, I just won't sit here and believe that Ben Simmons is hot trash, even though we have to. If you're not going to trade Ben Simmons, which I think the whole city hates him now, and it's kind of hard to say that they don't. I mean, we're sitting up here at 11:40 at night talking about how bad Ben Simmons was in this series, but at some point we have to overlook his defense and have to say, well, where are you offensively? We have to.
That's what in part lost us the series.
Is all right, cool. The stuff you did defensively, that's great. The last two games, foul calls. I mean, Dom, you know how I feel about the refs this series. It wasn't. It could have been better. But when you're talking about defensive play this, defensive play that, when Rudy Gobert plays defense, he also scores the basketball too. Draymond Green was a scorer as well at some point, and so was Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi Leonard still is a scorer. You have to be able to. That's called two-way. You're just a one-dimensional player. And once again,
one-dimensional players are liabilities in the playoffs. Rudy Gobert was a liability the other night.
Exactly.
In their finale. Defensive players in the end are liabilities unless you have a Steph Curry and a Klay Thompson and a Kevin Durant on the floor. The Sixers need to move on from Ben Simmons. That's the only viable move. Embiid's got 3-4 years left in his prime. The rest of the league is getting better. You'll go left in the dust if you hold on to 25.
But I won't sit here and still. I mean, Zach, the amount of Ben Simmons slander I heard. I mean, he still is a great player. I mean, Cole, would you say what you want? The defense.
That's fine. He's making $180 million a year. He can handle the Heat.
Exactly. I understand that, but he is a great player. Over the season. All right, but that's why I disagree. Over the season, he's a fantastic player, but he's a guy that you want to just bring in like a Matisse style when it comes to playoffs. I still don't buy into what Miles is saying about Dom. I don't believe what Miles is saying about he's a bust because he does have some up moments and he was a rookie of the year, but he's not a playoff player. He's not.
No, it's hard to say he was a bust. Like I said, because of the regular season production and success. Like I said, yeah, he's not a bad player. My biggest thing has been, like I said, he has failed to develop. And Gavin and Zach, we could go back to the show I was on with you guys where we previewed the NBA playoffs. The one question I had about the Sixers was, how well can this team score the ball? And we were thinking more about that more along the lines of when we thought they would play Brooklyn, because it was going to be a shootout, every night against that team. But even against the Hawks, who aren't they're not an outstanding offensive team by any means. They're not a bad offensive team, but not outstanding. They failed to score the ball at a high level. Like I said, part of that is, I go back and watch, some of the films on synergy, from some of the earlier, games. Nate McMillan did a great job of game planning. Tonight, I mean, I looked down the stretch tonight. I saw some scramble defense in there. In some bits, which in the NBA is like a relic. Even it's more of a college basketball thing. But they failed to score the ball, at a high level, and they didn't counterpunch well enough for me. I think you go down the stretch of the fourth quarter. Herder hit some big shots. The Sixers came up empty. Tobias Harris missed some huge layups in some key moments in that second half. Instead of being aggressive and dunking the ball, he softly goes to the basket and just tries to lay it up. And I think the one thing this team lacked, and people are going to disagree with me on it, was mental toughness. And I think that's one thing you have to look at with Embiid. I think he has to be. I'm not saying he's the leader of that pack. And when it comes to that issue, but he's somebody that's in there as well. Go back to what we were talking about with John Collins. That mental stuff can really get to you, and those antics on the court. I know it annoys a lot of people. Being a Delaware County guy, we have plenty of teams, high school teams in Delco that do that and win a ton. So it's a familiar sight for me. But this team just on we could go all night into every facet of the game. And just see where this team failed.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's so many. Like you said, when a team wins, you don't talk about that stuff. You can win by a point, and both teams could have played equally terrible or equally great. But just because of that extra point for one team, you ignore it, at least for the night. And I think that the Sixers may have done that an awful lot. Maybe not necessarily during the regular season, but certainly in some of the wins they had against Atlanta. Their first two wins against them were blowouts, and their only losses were close. Nobody really should have panicked. There was no reason to panic. But I think, unfortunately, for the Sixers team, there was maybe not enough panicking, not enough urgency. With that being said, you have one more guest we're going to pull in to get some of his thoughts. Zach, you've been on once before with us. We broke down when Doug Peterson was fired, or maybe when Carson Wentz was traded. But,
Yes.
Look, again, we've been sitting here kind of talking about it from a couple of different perspectives. Tom, of course, as a basketball coach, giving us some of his breakdown from his perspective, us from more the fan bias perspective. But just to add in another voice, another brain, what are some of your thoughts from what you saw in this whole series as a whole?
I'm just overall confused from a fan's perspective how they can go from being this team that, they're going to win this, they're going to win that. Basically the 2018-2019 redemption team. How they can turn out losing to the five seed Atlanta Hawks. I'm confused how we all could have thought that this could have happened. I mean, it was clear that it could have happened, but how it could have dramatically changed over this entire series to now us going home with our heads down low. And I'm just overall confused how this could have even happened. But for me, it really starts I know people are saying that Simmons will fix or whatever. It starts with Ben Simmons. If you're not able to shoot the ball consistently, and if you're not able to if the coach isn't even able to put you in at the end of the game and put Shake Milton, who may have had, 3 minutes?
Malik, his name is Malik. He doesn't have a nickname on his talk show. I just want to let you know that, but go on.
So basically, I mean, it's just confusing to me because I'm just gonna cut off with Ben Simmons, but he's not a superstar. If you're not able to be put in at the end of the game, hit your shots, the only reason why he wasn't in there is because they're gonna hack a Simmons, and Doc Rivers sure well knows that he's gonna miss the shot. So I mean, I don't know what they're gonna do with Ben Simmons, but that's just where I start off.
It seems to be the emphasis. It seems to be the number one problem on a lot of people's minds. I mean, if Tobias Harris just played as he regularly does, I think it was in Game 5, they'd most likely come out on top, and then they could have got it done in Game 6. But again, that just because they win the series doesn't mean they don't hide some of the issues with Ben Simmons. That's just, I mean, some good first thoughts. I mean, it all comes back to Simmons. Of course, coaching becomes into the question at some point. But even if Simmons, we can sit here and say, well, you know what, Tobias Harris could have been better. He could have been. But he's proven at this point he's not the guy. Everybody's looking for that Jimmy Butler, that last shot guy, that takeover kind of player. Exactly. It doesn't exist on the Philadelphia 76ers.
No.
If there is a player that you can move to get a player like that, at this point it's got to be Ben Simmons.
No. And Ben didn't need to be, let's just be clear, Ben didn't need to be a 30, 40-point scorer a night. But you can't be in single digits. He even his strong areas, being a great passer. There were games where he was, 5, 6 assists.
Turnovers were huge too.
Yeah, and now I will say this with the turnovers. The Sixers early on, the ball stuck a little too much to my liking. They struggled with ball. Like I said, this is where you have to really watch the film and give Atlanta credit. Pulling out scrambled, some scrambled defense in ATO situations. Some of their guards, the way they played the passing lane was really good. Being a great box out team, the little things. I think really helped Atlanta defensively that, the average fan may not look at. But, back to Ben, even his strong suits in this series, we really didn't see.
I mean, what strong suit you want to talk about, Dom? I mean, in Game 1 in Washington, he has 15 and 15 with like single-digit points. That's the only notable game I remember of Ben Simmons getting criticized. And then the next game, he has 20 points. Never saw that another day in this series, in this playoffs. But my main issue, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, to me, it's like he went up against who I may be completely wrong. This is just my personal opinion. He went up against a better guard in Trae Young. I mean, not in Trae Young, in Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal.
Absolutely.
Than he did against Trae Young, who, by the way, he's like, what is he, 6'1", 175. Russell Westbrook is a tank, and I think Ben Simmons lacks confidence. If he's not able to put up good numbers against a guy who's half his weight and half his height, not literally, but metaphorically, but I mean, it just shows he lacks confidence, and he's not that X factor guy who you're going to go down at the end of the game. He's not going to hit the shot. What is he really going to do? His strong suits, right? They were defense. His defense didn't really do anything. Passing, as you mentioned, he, being a fan, he had the turnovers, many turnovers that could have been easily avoided. He wasn't taking, I was just on the phone with my brother and my cousins. They were talking about how he should become a power forward. Ben Simmons can't even play bully ball anymore. He seems weak. Like
he gave up an open dunk for crying out loud.
Exactly. And you can't be a dominant player in the league if you're not able to facilitate the ball, if you're not able to drive to the hoop. If you're 6'11" and you're a point guard, you should be dunking the ball on a 6'1" guard's head every single play.
I'll take it.
And if you get double teamed by a bigger guy, you kick it out.
Exactly.
I'll take it one step further. Well, I said this earlier in the show. If I was blessed with being 6'10", that can move like he does, and I put in the NBA, and I'm going against a guy like Trae Young, who's as soft as a feather, I'm bullying you.
Yes.
I'm going for 30 a night.
I agree.
30 or 20 a night. I'm going for double figures.
Done it before.
You have to do that if you're not doing it. But we need to go back to Rookie of the Year Ben Simmons, where they go on a 16, what was it, a 15, 16-game win streak, when he was scoring the ball and he was the guy. I think what happened is he got lost in this, Joel Embiid's the guy, the number one, and then you got Tobias Harris, who's not really a good number two. And by the way, we can put a missing person for him because I don't know where the hell he's been at. And he just lost his offense. And the reason I knew Ben Simmons was broken is as soon as he gave up on an open dunk. And not once did this game did he drive. He did not drive it once.
No, and it doesn't make sense either. I mean,
2 for 4 on field goals tonight.
yeah, you're not a superstar. You're not deserving of the 5-year, $180 million
No,
contract,
not
which
at
just
all.
gets into the money part, the 170, whatever it is. You're not deserving of that if the coach can't even keep you in at the end of the game. I don't even know.
And when you're in the playoffs, and we saw this tonight with Atlanta, now granted for the Sixers, Joel Embiid wasn't off like Trae Young was, but the value of your third and fourth options shows. And Trae Young wasn't. Trae Young got off to a really cold start tonight. Everybody else stepped up. Herter won them the game. Capella had a really good night. Collins had a really good night. Those are the third. Collins and Herter. Those are your third and fourth options. For this, the Sixers don't shoot. Their second option is inconsistent. And Tobias Harris, who's like I said earlier, is getting paid all that money for what? So this was, I think, a really good series for the Sixers to look themselves in the mirror and say, step back and say, hey, we're not as close as we think to being a championship team compared to the rest of the league. Now you look at Phoenix. I think the chemistry.
Phoenix is great.
Look, the chemistry that those guys have down there in the Valley is incredible. Chris Paul is just great at fostering a winning culture wherever he goes.
Yes,
And that's been in the works for a few years now. You have a couple of young guys who haven't really, of course, Mikal Bridges last year took a big step. I don't remember where Cameron Payne came from, if he was a rookie or not in the past few years.
Cameron Payne was nothing.
Cameron Payne was written off by Chicago, and Phoenix picked him up and made something out of him. DeAndre Ayton's getting better. They don't rely on him too much on the offensive end. You look at Milwaukee. They are deep. They're a much.
Giannis gets better every year.
Yes and no.
I'd say this year he's kind of been
Shooting,
stagnant,
no, but everything else, yes.
3 years ago to last year, I'd say, or before last year.
The difference with Giannis and Benda with the shooting is Milwaukee has surrounded him with 4.5 guys on the floor at all times that could shoot. The only thing that's missing for the Bucks, in my opinion, is a center. I think Giannis would be a great small ball 5, but they're only missing a center. Other than that, though, if you put them against the Sixers, when you have to go to your bench, Milwaukee doesn't have that much of a drop off. And then you look at the Clippers. Plenty of just a team of
39. We're crying out loud.
You look at Utah's bench. Utah lacks that more dominant star in the starting lineup. That's what they're missing in this series. But you look at their bench as well, and they were awful to keep this year.
I completely agree. I don't even know. I mean, it's just mind-boggling how we could put so much trust into this team and for it to end like this to the Atlanta Hawks out of everybody. I had them winning the championship this year, which was clearly incorrect. I mean,
I was right with you. I had Suns and Sixers. Everybody
exactly, and it just shows how they're not as close as I think they are, or think they were, that they thought they were. They're not gonna. I mean, what do they need to do? Are they gonna keep Simmons? Are they gonna get rid of him? Like,
if you keep Simmons, you have to force his hand and be like, look, like we're tired of it. You have to.
You're not going to get. I don't think we're going to get to him.
No, but how many years is it going to take? Is going
going
on his 6th year in the NBA. He's going on his 6th year in the NBA, and he still can't make a jump shot. How many years does it take for us to give up on him? Sorry to cut you off, but how many years?
Every year, the 3-pointers in the gym. That was 2 years ago now. I mean, the joke of the free throws have gotten worse this year.
Yes.
That's my next question. As we do begin to wrap it up, we do have a few minutes here, though. I'll start with Gavin, then we'll go to Dom, and then we'll end it off with Zach. What is your first move in the offseason for the 76ers? Gavin, you go first.
I'm calling to see if Damian Lillard or anybody's on the move. I have to. And I'm offering them Ben Simmons and a pick, and if needed, I'll move Danny Green. I don't know what you do.
We don't have him under contract, I thought, right? Or do we? Or we do?
No, I think Danny Green's off. I think Curry 1 more year. Green is off contract.
And you have to keep Curry here for the rest of his time.
Curry's great.
He's the only that showed up. But my first order of business, Dom, if I'm your guy, Daryl Morey, I'm calling Portland, and I'm asking, and I'm pulling that family card on Steph Curry. I'm doing one of those two.
I'm gonna call Portland. I don't think there's any chance Steph Curry leaves Golden State. I think that's I think that's somewhat of a ludicrous assumption. I mean, the guy is is the best player in the history of that franchise. It'd be cool to see him and his brother play together.
Yes.
It'll be here too. Come on.
There's a higher likelihood of.
But now he's set out in the Bay. I don't want to see him leave Dallas, but I know he's pretty pissed off with what's been going on down there. Maybe make a phone call for Luka Doncic. That's something. To definitely look at. In my opinion, that guy he's it. When we talk about the stars of tomorrow, he is it.
Luka and Embiid with a team up.
Luka and Embiid.
And so my obviously moving Ben would be my first priority, and then from there, you look at the rest of the roster. And aside from Ben, like I said, the thing that bothered me the most this year was just the bench, because it was something that
it's always the bench. It's nothing new.
It was inconsistent. It was inconsistent.
It was inconsistent.
George Hill was never
They never addressed it.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking when they traded away Tony Bradley and picks for George Hill. What did he even do? He was supposedly a 45%.
Get him. I agree with you. I think though they had a false sense of security with Dwight Howard. And this just wasn't a series for Dwight.
No,
it wasn't.
There was no big in there to challenge him. You could have went Ben at small at the 5 when Embiid was out.
Right.
I don't know.
Which becomes obviously his offensive woes, but you add another shooter to the 4 during that time. It doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah.
Can we get? Go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't even know where to start with this team. I think they really need to look at the pieces that they have. I believe in Daryl Morey, but looking for the X factor player, whether it's Lillard or Doncic or Zach LaVine or Bradley Beal, one of those guys. You need a solidified point guard and you need an X factor player who will lead you to a championship. It's as simple as that. It's not too simple, but you need a point guard or you need a guy, not maybe Jimmy Butler, because there's no way you're going to get him back, but a guy like Jimmy Butler who has that X factor. I just have one question for you guys, and then I have to hop off. But do you think that the process failed?
Yes. And I'm a hinky guy. I just want to get that out of the way. But yeah, it failed.
Go ahead, Zach. I'll let you answer that.
I have an interesting take on that. Did it fail? The purpose of the process is to gather as many assets as you can. They accomplished that. And then they had a combination of misutilization of those assets, and then had between bad picks and bad decision making, and then obviously could not leave it out on the floor and execute correctly. The process itself of collecting assets, and so there's no doubt Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are talented players. That part of the process was a success. The process of development, the rest of the process, which is to win a title with those assets, is a failure. So I would have to ultimately say it is a failure.
To get back to the playoffs, that part of the process did not fail. All right, we won nine damn games one year. I mean, come on, we go from 9 wins to being in the playoffs. So that part of the process,
being the number 1 seed,
to be number 1 seed. So that part of the process didn't fail. But the next level, to get out of the second round, to Simmons to do better, that's been a damn joke, and that's failed. That part failed.
I completely agree, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think the general management has some blame to do with that, not going back and reliving the past. But there's just so many stupid decisions that the 76ers have made, and they're obvious. The Sixers organization, and basically every single major sports team in Philadelphia, but just looking at the Sixers, they always try to be the smartest. The GM always tries to be the smartest person in the room.
Oh, we know about that, right? Howard Rosen, right?
We don't need to talk about Howard Rosen.
No, not today.
We all have our views on that, but they always try to be the smartest man in the room. It was evident that Michael Bridges was good. They had to give him up to get Zaire Smith, who's now out of the league because he had food poisoning, whatever. But it just
the Jason Tatum potential you could have drafted.
Exactly.
You could have Tatum and Bridges on the same team without moving a finger.
They traded up to get Markelle Fultz, right? Which doesn't even make sense considering they had Simmons the year before as their point guard, who just won. No, maybe he didn't win Rookie of the Year. The year after, I think he won. But
yeah,
the point is, they already had a point guard. So why would you go and draft another guard? It didn't add up and make sense.
You could have had Ben, Tatum and I'm about to shut my
Yeah,
mouth.
Bridges too.
I'm
But
Bridges.
Zach, yeah. So one thing, Tom, I want to add before we go. Of course, this is the latest we've done a show. First time we've crossed over into midnight, 21st of
Break your
June.
records.
It's
Break
my
your
I'm gonna
records.
thank Snapchat for this because I wouldn't have remembered. Zach, happy birthday, dude! I just saw it when I put it
Happy
up.
birthday, Zach. Happy
Thank you.
birthday.
Hope you enjoyed it with us. I'm sorry the Sixers couldn't, satisfy the day before, but
It's more than ours.
no. Before you go, man, again, happy birthday! Thanks for coming on with us. I'm sorry we couldn't
Birthday. I'm not-
to pull off a win, but we'll have to get you on again and continue to break it all down.
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
Happy birthday.
I'll see you.
See you around, man. Yeah, I mean, look, it's just a tough situation, tough circumstances. My final conclusion is that first you're calling to see if Damian Lillard's available. If he's not, you call Chicago. If he's not if Levine's not available,
I don't want Zach LaVine here.
I guess you look at McCollum, CJ McCollum potentially.
I don't want CJ either.
I wouldn't mind him, but he can't be the guy.
If it's not Lillard, if you can't get Lillard and you can't get Doncic, who else are we looking at? Who else do you think we could get?
Bradley Beal is going to get paid because him and Russell Westbrook.
And Bradley Beal wants to stay in Washington.
Yeah, he's been very loyal to that team.
I
Yeah,
mean,
he wants to be like the Dirk down there.
I wish Kemba Walker wasn't hurt. I would have went for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just they need a point guard that can be that guy late in the game, because Tobias Harris has clearly proved he can't be, and B can only do so much himself. Seth Curry was a nice flash in the pan this series, but we know ultimately he's a role player. There's not many guards like that are on the move. There's a reason that they stick around. There's a reason the Steph Currys, the Damian Lillards, the most likely Lukas. There's a reason these guys stick around on their teams for a long time.
Damn, I would love to have Jamal Murray. I mean, I'm sorry. I know that was random, but I mean, guys like you ain't
Look at him. Look at Donovan Mitchell. Look at all these great guards. Devin Booker.
Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, Devin Booker, who you could have had, by the way. Just saying. Remember, they were offering Devin Booker. They were shopping because they wasn't winning.
Yeah, right before the 8-0, right before they went 8-0 last year, there was talks of Simmons and picks for Booker.
And guess what? Now Devin Booker's possibly about to be a champion, and Ben Simmons is still Ben Simmons that can't hit a free throw. I mean, you know what, Zach? I'm declaring for the NBA. I mean, the game is soft. I can average 20 points right now. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can. I mean, the way how the game is played, I can get a couple 20 average rookie year or something. I don't know. I mean, there's just nothing. When you look at other teams, you look at Denver, you look at LA Clippers, you look at the Suns. They have great guard play. You have Jamal Murray. Like, Jamal Murray is not a superstar. He's a star. And every year he gets better.
You combine that with Jokic, and they're a pretty damn good team, or you combine that with Embiid, you're even better, in my opinion.
Exactly. But I don't know. I wish you didn't spend money on Tobias Harris. I really don't.
It was a knee jerk reaction after failing to get Jimmy Butler back here.
You should just do what Jimmy asked for, which is give it to Brett Brown.
No one else would have paid Tobias Harris that money. I'm confident in that.
Tobias Harris would have took a 4-year or 3-year deal, 3-year, 8.
Well, he was unrestricted, right? Was he unrestricted that year? Anyone remember?
Think so. Zach, that was his 4th team in like 6 years. He was not going to move again. You could have gave him a $5. You could have gave him $5. It wasn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's a tough circumstance. He was an all right fit with Jimmy Butler. He was not the best fit now, but it's going to be something that the dust needs to settle before we can really sit back and analyze it. But I mean, in the draft, unless you trade up, which is unlikely, if you get for Jalen Suggs, you're reaching high up there. You can talk to some of the teams that are in the tank mode this year. Unlikely, but Ben Simmons will most likely.
Would the trading be interested?
I don't know. I mean, Dom, do you think it'd be worth adding a rookie to this team, or with the win now scenario, are you better off with a veteran?
You're better off. I think you're better off with a veteran in a win now scenario. A rookie. I think especially in this year's draft class, depending on what trade scenarios in the draft you look at. Thinking about where this, what move the Sixers could possibly make would be a bit of a gamble. So, yeah, I think, being in win now mode and the arms race that the NBA is, you have to go with a veteran.
without a doubt. And I mean, in a league that is growing in offense, the Sixers have one of the best defenders, but not able to get the job done on offense.
Just offense.
With that being said, everybody, we'll be back probably on our summer hours tomorrow. Looking to start at 12 o'clock, Gavin. We'll get that figured out, of course, as we are getting back underway in our second summer of running the show. Dom, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
No
It's
problem.
a great night. I know it's a bitter ending to the weekend, but hey, a lot of quieter teams, a lot of smaller market teams, a lot of names that we don't expect in the NBA semifinals, in the Western Conference and Eastern Conference Finals. As an NBA fan, I love it, honestly, to see some of these teams who don't usually get the exposure. Phoenix, of course, and the other LA team battling out, and then, of course, Milwaukee battling out with Atlanta. So it'll be fun to watch.
Real quick before we go, I have to get this out. I did get out of my system because, ladies and gentlemen, I stay home for senior week. Can we just admire Zach's tan that he got going on right now? Can we? I mean, just
nice.
the look at the face and everything that.
Not a big beach guy, but it felt good to relax for a week. But we're back to work, back to the reality of sports. Gavin, we gotta go. I know you didn't get a chance to come down, but we gotta make a day trip down there.
Day trip down there, or New York, or Topgolf. Let's figure something out. And by the way, Zach, just to add insult to injury, this team today lost 13-2. If anyone cares,
I saw that as well.
Insult to injury.
Only 4 games back in the division, though. They have a chance next week against the Mets to tie or take the division.
It's going to be a long summer because the Phillies are the only two we got to talk about.
Welcome to the dog days. In all seriousness, though, we'll be back tomorrow. For anyone who's watching now, we will have Facebook up and running again tomorrow. I know tonight we ran into some issues. But again, thank you, everybody. We hope you have a great night, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Have a good one, everybody. See you later today, actually.
For sure. Have a good one.
Have a good one, everybody.
If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. In addition, hit that bell icon and set it to all to get reminded of when we go live and when we post extras.